Welcome to the Asian Supermarket. I'm your host Christina from America.
And I'm Carmen from Australia.
Welcome to episode 12 of Asian Supermarket. This week we've got a cool episode with our American-born Chinese friend Debra, who recently moved back to California after teaching in Shanghai.
So grab your favorite snacks as we chat with our guest in episode 12.
Hi everyone, welcome to episode 12 of Asian Supermarket. Today we have our special guest, Debra. Hi Debra.
Hi.
So Debra was born in California to a family from Guangdong, China. After she graduated with a degree in sociology, she moved to China to teach ESL in Shanghai. But recently she's moved back to California and she's pursuing education. So yeah, welcome Debra. Christina, can you let us know how you guys met, how you know each other?
Yeah, so I initially knew Debra through one of my friends. They were dorm mates. Shout out, Rachel. Anyways, and then afterwards, we're in the same college dance team. So we got to see each other a bit more. And then, yeah, it's been a long time. So glad to use this show as a way to, catch up with you. What is a famous Guangdong dish recommendation for someone who's never tried Cantonese food?
Anything from dim sum, chicken feet, siu mai, ha gao, things like this. It's gonna be shrimp dumplings and like pork dumplings.
Do you have any fun facts of the day for us, Carmen?
Guangdong is located in southern part of China, and the meaning of the name actually translates to east of the expanse. Debra, can you tell us more about yourself? When you grew up in Temple City, actually we had a misunderstanding because these two told me that Debra was from Temple City, and I freaking thought Temple City was in China for some reason. My stupid butt wrote a whole bunch of questions for her based on assuming that she was born in China. And she was like, actually, I was born in America. Like, what? There's a place in America called Temple City? Like, so culturally unaware. But yeah, so you're born in Temple City. Let's go from there.
To be fair, Temple City is a huge community of Chinese people. It's mostly Chinese, partly Vietnamese. Most the supermarkets are Chinese. A lot of there's acupuncturists, things like that all around. Wow. Lots of boba shops.
Is it near where you are, Christina?
It's in Southern California. So is Temple City considered 626 still?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so it's in Southern California, about how many minutes away from LA, you would say?
I would say 20 minutes without traffic.
Oh, okay, yeah. And the 626 area is known for the Asian food, Asian community, those things. Yeah.
So you're not too far off from it being Chinesey.
Yeah.
So growing up, you were quite in touch with Chinese culture. Were a lot of your friends Chinese, Asians, or?
Yeah, almost everybody was Chinese or Vietnamese. Actually, it's not until I got to college that I started to meet other cultures and races.
And you could speak do you speak Cantonese, Mandarin growing up, or did your parents teach you?
My parents speak Cantonese, but they can speak English quite well as well. And so I speak some Cantonese, things that you would use around the home, but I don't actually speak it fluently.
And I know that in America, it's quite a big thing for you guys to I don't know if it's a common thing, but apparently I heard a lot of Chinese kids go to on the weekends, you guys will go to Chinese school. Did you guys both do that?
I definitely had after school. After school was a big thing up until 7th grade. And part of that had Chinese class, but everyone hated it so much that we didn't participate or found ways to leave. Spent hours in the bathroom.
Yeah, for me, I mainly learned through high school, but we didn't really learn, our classes were, sing karaoke song, make Chinese dishes. For me, it was highlighting my papers, with all bright neon highlighters. So the teacher would be like, this is what Christina's been doing in class, literally highlighting pieces of paper, because it's so easy, if you speak it at home, it's whatever. So yeah, it's mainly, I learned my Chinese through home and watching dramas. Yeah. Then Debra, how did you get into the whole education field and going into Shanghai?
So in my third year, I studied abroad in Korea, and then there I took a class called Sociology of Education, which was actually about American education for some reason. And then started getting into that, looked into doing research on education before deciding, I'm just gonna teach, why not? But before getting attached to California, because you're only accredited in one state at a time, I decided to go abroad to travel and explore before coming back.
What grades did you teach abroad?
So my youngest students were, I think, 5 years old, and then my oldest students were like 13, because the school that I taught at, it was actually done by level rather than age or grade. So you just keep teaching the same kids throughout your whole tenure there.
Was it more like a like Chinese school or international school?
So a lot of the staff was Chinese, like my boss is Chinese, some of my coworkers are Chinese, but the core teachers, they're all foreign. Either American or British, or someone was from New Zealand. Yeah.
Did you find it hard to adjust? Because had you been to China before that? Like, do you go visit Guangzhou or Guangdong often, or?
I went one time when I was in 6th grade, but then otherwise never went. I think so. Something that helped me a lot was that my cousins went first to also teach ESL. And then I went, so they helped me adjust, like figured out which apps I needed, how do I get around, what subway stop am I getting off at, things like that. And Shanghai itself is quite international, so not speaking Mandarin was not that big of a hurdle for me to get over either. Yeah, I think I've had more trouble adjusting back to California than I had going in the initial run.
Oh wow, why? Like what's hard for you to adjust?
I think that some things that are in LA or like around Temple City are things that I can find in Shanghai. Whereas there are some conveniences within Shanghai that I can't find here, like getting delivery super cheap, getting taxi super cheap. Taobao is like Chinese eBay.
Oh yeah.
So like much more expansive and much cheaper.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
okay. I'm just curious, this is like a side note thing. What kind of apps are famous in Shanghai? Like I know WeChat and then Taobao. Like is there anything else?
Weibo.
Oh yeah.
But actually, Weibo is not really used by the younger generation.
Oh,
But
really?
Right now there's like Dianping is Yelp,
Okay.
and then Didi is Uber.
Yeah.
Let me see. There's a bunch of like Jifubao is Alipay, obviously, and you use that to pay for literally everything under the sun.
It's like Venmo.
Yeah.
But more because you pay for utilities through it, you pay for like metro through it.
Yeah. It's crazy. Like when I was in China, even like this is something that I found really interesting. The paying system there, the 支付宝 is like Alipay, right? Even like street side, like tiny little street side vendors, like little hawkers and stuff. A lot of them don't even accept cash. Like they just have this QR code and you basically scan the QR code and that's how you pay them. Like even tiny little street side like vendors, like little hawkers. I was so amazed at like how advanced the payment system was there.
I saw a meme on this before on WeChat. People are sharing and they're saying like apparently I don't know if this is even true, but because the technology is so expansive, like even before for homeless people they get change and stuff, but now they're like, oh, scan our QR code.
Scan
I
our
don't know if
QR
you guys
code.
seen it, but yeah.
This is true, at least in Shanghai, it's true.
For the cities I went to, I was like, wow. And it's so hard as a foreigner because for foreigners, you can't open bank accounts in China unless you have like special business visa. So like the first few times we went over, it was like so hard to pay because a lot of people don't accept cash and they only accept like the digital payments. And if you don't have a bank account, you basically can't link the digital payment. And that means that you can't eat out, you can't order a lot of things online. It's so hard to get around if you don't have a Chinese bank account in China.
Yeah.
Did you have one, Debra? I'm assuming.
Yeah, I had a bank account when I first went over there. Actually, when I first went over, it was much easier to open a bank account because all you needed was just like your tourist visa. And then the year after that, they cut that off, and now you need a work visa or a business visa.
So you were like for your job, you were also paid in renminbi, right? Or it's called renminbi. Yeah. Okay. How's like the social life in Shanghai? Like, how do you guys make friends? And then, what's something you'll miss about it other than the convenience, stuff like that?
How I made friends in the beginning. So I took a TEFL course. Do you guys know what that is?
Temple course?
TEFL, TEFL.
Oh, TEFL. Oh, isn't it like tofu?
A TOEFL is like something that's more used, I think, in Korea.
Okay.
They're certificates that you get for teaching English abroad. They're like you go through a training system and then you get a certificate at the end.
Yeah.
So I met one of my closest friends. I ended up living with him through that, and then both of us were into sports and the variety of other things. So we went to dodgeball.
Wow.
Yeah, and that's like a weekly thing that just random people will go to have fun and not take too seriously. So that's how I met a lot of people. And once you meet like one person, you start, meeting other people through the grapevine.
Was it mostly like Chinese people? Did you have any like language barriers when you were talking to, people in Mandarin?
Yeah, I definitely when I first went there and I went to the convenience store and they said "Da, da, 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 da," and I looked at them and I said, "What? I'm sorry." And they
Because
looked at me.
maybe people don't know, but within China, like people who don't speak Mandarin, a lot of different regions have super different accents. Like Shanghai accent, Beijing accent, Guangdong accent is all like super different. So if you don't grow up in China, I think it's really hard for your ear to adjust to like the different accents that you don't hear when you're growing up.
But Shanghai, because it has like so many people from other areas, they basically they speak the just general Mandarin. Yeah, definitely got looked at like I was dumb because I just didn't understand what people were saying.
They're like, wait, she looks Chinese, but how does she not know what we're saying?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Then were there any cultural barriers? Because I know you lived in, like a very Asian neighborhood, right? So there shouldn't be, right? Like,
yeah, culturally there wasn't too much for me to adjust to, other than how fast people move. I think West Coast out like America is pretty slow. And then I went there and everyone's like rushing, going like pushing each other in the supermarkets. People, I got cut in line like 4 times and I was about to like slap somebody.
Yeah.
And I was like, no, it's not my culture. So I'll just accept it.
No, for sure. I feel that too. The few times that I've been to China, there were times when people like you're waving a taxi down, right? And you think that, when it pulls up, you're like, okay, this is my taxi. Someone just jumps out of the bushes and gets in and you're like, bro, like, come on. Or like in line.
Oh, I felt that when I was 8. So I went to the train station in China and literally like there's so much people. There's this big gap, right? And they're all pushing to get in and I almost fell in the gap. Like I almost died.
Dude, the train stations are crazy when you're lining up to buy tickets for the train and stuff. If you're in the line and you leave any kind of space between you and the person in front, someone will come and like put themselves in. And like I'm not saying it's a bad thing or anything. Like that's just how the culture is there, because there's so many people, like, if you don't look out for yourself, then people will just like, yeah, I understand like how it got to that, so I'm not like bashing them or anything, but yeah, that's just how it is there. You got to stand your ground.
Then Debra, do you feel like you're more westernized or you're a quite traditional person?
I'm pretty Western in the sense that like my values, I guess, are more Western. My family's not very strict or harsh on it. They're just like, oh yeah, do whatever you want. You want to be a teacher? You want to go abroad? Okay, bye, kind of feeling.
Yeah.
But like what I'm finding after having traveled is that like food wise, that's the big thing where I'm like, oh yes, Asian food, please. I don't think I can live somewhere that doesn't have it.
Did you miss American food at all though when you were in China? Were you like, damn, I'm kind of craving a burger or like a pizza?
Not really, just because after growing up, like I ate dim sum every weekend, I got boba, like I already had all of that in Shanghai. So I think the only thing I missed were like tacos, because tacos aren't like Mexican food is not really a big thing in Shanghai. Neither is Vietnamese food.
But yeah, did you pick up any mannerisms during your time there in Shanghai?
I think the only thing that's changed is that I have a better understanding of how like Chinese government works, which is a good thing and a bad thing. Something that happened in Shanghai is that so before scooters, like electric mopeds, things like that, they could be motorized and they could be any size. And then Shanghai passed a law, like it has to be this small and it has to be electric. And then pretty much within a week, like people would change their scooters. Like, oh, we are now sorting trash. Oh, okay. Everyone is sorting trash. Like there's no like transitional period. It's just like it's happening.
I guess that's how they managed to control the whole COVID situation so well, because whatever the government says, like that's the good point of it, because whatever the government says, people will listen, like they don't have much rebellion, like protests or anything, because and that's a great way to control pandemics. So
yeah. But during the pandemic, you were trapped in did you live in an apartment?
Yeah.
Like where you guys, I heard where you guys can't come out. I don't know for your region, but people couldn't come out. They had only food delivered, stuff like that. Did that happen to you?
Yeah, for sure. I was in America in January, and then I flew back in February. And because I was coming from a foreign country, I had to do a 2-week quarantine, which meant I had to be in my apartment, and I had like a sensor on my door. And every time I opened the door, like security would call and be like, "Why are you opening the door?" So I actually like couldn't physically go outside for 2 weeks. We had to get our like groceries delivered and everything. And my poor roommate.
So you could quarantine. It wasn't in a government facility. It was like in your like in your room in your dorm.
If you lived in an apartment where your roommates also agreed to do it, then you could go home like to your apartment.
Oh, okay.
But if you didn't have that, you would have to go to a hotel.
Can you tell us more about like the Chinese holidays that you celebrated in China? Because I know that, you know, they have like the big like Chinese New Year, and then they have like the Mid-Autumn Festival and things like that. How was it celebrating those holidays over there?
During the first year, I didn't go outside of China for the fall holiday. And then the next year I went to Hangzhou, which is close to Shanghai, but it's a very, very popular spot. And that means that there are so many people. Like,
wow.
I can't even stress enough how many people there were. Like, you would just walk down the street, right? But it felt like you were exiting a concert stadium because there were so many people. This is fall holiday.
Fall holiday. Oh, okay.
So that's like in the beginning of October.
Since you know you've been there for a while in Shanghai or Guangdong or you know even Hangzhou area, right? That you would recommend checking out.
I suggest leaving Shanghai as soon as you come to Shanghai. That's what I've suggested to everyone that comes to visit. Because Shanghai by itself is quite boring. It's mostly a business center. So I would go out to like Hangzhou. Hangzhou has really nice gardens and lakes. And then going all the way out to like Nanjing for history, memorial, things like that. And within Shanghai, there are a couple of restaurants. One is Lotus. It's very popular amongst foreigners, but also fairly popular amongst Chinese people. And then Yoshari, which is like I'm gonna misspeak because I feel like I'm gonna be wrong. Is it Xinjiang food?
Xinjiang. Oh yeah. You're right.
But these are restaurants that aren't really the cuisine that's not available in America. It's like at least as far as I've seen.
Oh, do you celebrate holidays much? Because you said that your family is like not traditional Chinese, but do you guys still have those traditions of like celebrating the different Chinese holidays?
We used to celebrate like Chinese New Year pretty hardcore, like a week of festivities. Where we would make alcohol. That's died down ever since people have become adults.
Yeah.
And then same with Christmas and Thanksgiving. We never celebrated any of it traditionally, like American traditionally. We just like ate duck instead of turkey. And like had hot pot family dinner, things like that.
Then I'm curious, since you work in education, right? How is the education system different when you were in, you know, China versus here? Like, of course, we know the stereotype where it's like really hard. People said like, oh, they have sticks and hit you. Like, is that really true?
I can talk about this topic for forever. I think in China, I worked in a program that's after school, right? So you have to like pay for it. So the students that I served were from more affluent communities. I had students that were like 5, 6, right? And they would be up at 6:30 to go to school at 8. And then they would have class, and my classes would sometimes be from 6 to 8 p.m. So if they were out for all that day, they would be in class of some sort from like 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. after which they had homework from all their extracurriculars. And this is like starting very young.
That's just how like most of the kids in China live, would you say?
Yeah, I would say so. But at the very least, school runs for a lot longer. It starts at like 8 and then ends at 4, something like for just public school.
Could you talk more about how you got into teaching ESL? Like, how did you actually go over to China? Like, how did you stumble upon this opportunity? Did you actively look for it? Because you didn't study, like you had a degree in sociology, and then did you use that degree as like a qualification to be able to go over China to teach, or?
No, so what happened was after I graduated, I worked at an after school to teach in America. And then I knew I wanted to teach abroad. So that's what happened. But I needed the funds to pay for a TEFL course. That's like $1,000 something if you're doing it in person. And then like flight tickets, things like that. But after that, a lot of the times the TEFL courses, you're getting sent over on a tourist visa. And then a lot of people do visa runs where you just leave the country for like 24 hours and then fly straight back. You have to renew like 3-month visas or 2-month visas.
Wait, so you can teach in China on a tourist visa, or?
You cannot.
Oh,
but
so
during TEFL, like you might have to do that because it'll take time to get a job. And then it'll take time to process your visa.
So you take this course when you're already in China?
You can do it online as well. I just didn't think that would be a worthwhile pursuit.
When you were teaching there, like, did you apply a lot of the, you would say, English Western mentality in teaching, or did they tell you specific, rules and regulations, Chinese specific?
This would depend on the institute that you teach at, but mine was quite free still. So then we were allowed to do our classes how we wanted. So that includes like punishments or like reward systems, classroom management, and the way that we run our classes, they're all based on games and like having fun and learning English through just like using it a lot. I know that other schools, they had set curriculums that you had to follow. That depends on what kind of style you would want to get into.
What were some of the punishments, rewards you guys can do?
It's really basic. Like, here's a star for doing well. You're gonna erase the star because you acted out. There's a lot of parental communication, which is done with a TA because sometimes parents don't speak English and we don't speak Chinese. So there's no I'm pretty sure hitting the students is like outlawed at this point.
Did they have things like, when I was in Singapore, I was like quite a naughty kid, and the teacher would always make me like 罚站, like stand at the door and just like reflect, like self-reflection. I got that a lot.
In my class before, this was for the Chinese class in high school. If you're late to class, they make you sing a song in Chinese. Yeah,
there's a lot of like yelling and shaming in like regular Chinese classes.
It's so embarrassing. Like, as a kid who got that, it was so embarrassing. Like, getting shamed. I remember there was one incident when I was young, right? I'd forgotten my lunch money, and then my grandma came to like bring me my lunch money, and she was like, she got permission to come into like the classroom to hand me the money. When she was handing me the money, the teacher went up to her and started complaining about me, like to my grandma in front of the class. And I was like so embarrassed, I was like, bro, she's just here to hand me money, like, can you not do this right now? But yeah, I think that's like a thing with Chinese people. They just like don't care about like,
they're like straight up blunt, like not go around the corner.
Yeah.
In like Western stuff, they're always like, oh yeah, you're good at this, but like you can be better. And then Chinese are straight up
a compliment sandwich, right? They say like,
they're like, we can't
bad thing, then
compliment you. If we compliment you, you won't be up here. We have to like say you're never good enough.
How do you deal with like bad kids like that? I'm sure there's a lot of kids that don't even want to learn English, but their parents are like forcing them to. Right?
You actually surprisingly don't find that many kids who don't want to learn it, mostly because like the way we format it is games, right? And so they actually just come in and they play games and then they leave. But there's definitely like bad behavior. And then what I try to do at least is try to talk to them and like talk about like why it's bad. Is it okay to hurt is it okay to hurt Kyle?
Like logically.
Why would you punch him? Yeah. Like just like empathy. I'm trying to teach empathy, and sometimes that works pretty well. Sometimes I have to like threaten to like call their mom and be like, oh, your mom's gonna like.
Does that usually work in China? Like people are, you like once you bring in the parents, the kids are like, oh my god, like.
yeah. There's definitely a fear of like, oh no, dad's gonna come in.
Can you talk more about like English influence, maybe like English, like Western culture, maybe music? Like I know recently there's a lot of like hip hop has been getting really big in China, and I know that's like really derived from Western culture.
My pool of samples comes from like students.
Yeah.
And a lot of Chinese students, they don't actually listen to music. Yeah, if they do, they don't know what song it is, or they don't know the artist. They have no idea what it is. So music-wise, I had students who were big fans of like Blackpink or.
Oh yeah, because Korea is huge in Asia.
Yeah, I've had like K-pop fans and students. Yeah, but for the most part, a lot of people just stick with Chinese media. Sometimes like American Hollywood movies will get through, but like let's say Black Panther, I don't think a lot of people would understand it, like what it represents.
Like the context of things just get lost. I guess.
Yeah, exactly.
Any like funny stories that happened, like maybe like some kind of cultural, miscommunication?
If anything, it would be like language barriers of like accidentally cursing because I got the tone wrong. Yeah.
I don't know if this is, I want to share one. So I don't know if this is like a thing in China, but in Singapore, a lot of the hawker centers, like the food stores are run, like I was eating at this like food place and it was like a Chinese like old auntie, right? And then apparently the slang there is like when they say like, oh, are you eating here? Are you taking away?
Yeah.
So they'll say like, they'll ask you like after they've cooked the meal, they'll be like, oh, 是吃了吗? And the meaning is like, are you eating it here? Like actually the translation is like, are you eating? So that's a direct translation, right?
Yeah.
And I remember they asked me, and actually they were asking like, are you eating it here? Or do you want to take it away? So she was like, 吃了吗? Are you eating? And I was like, I mean, if it's not for eating, like what is it for? And I was so confused. And I was like looking at her and I was like, yeah, like what else would I like? Am I gonna throw it away? Like, of course I'm eating it. And then after I went home to my family and I was like, why did she ask me this? And they were like, no, she meant like, are you eating it here or are you taking it away? And I was like, just little things like that when you don't understand the slang. And
I also have one like when I was little. There's one thing called 那个东西, right? Meaning like this thing. And then in my class there were kids of other ethnicities, right? So they didn't understand Chinese. So, they thought 那个 or saying something, like a racial slur. And then told the teacher, and the teacher was gonna give me detention because they thought I was like racially, like saying. I had to like tell the teacher because my teacher is American. I'm like, oh, in Chinese it means this thing. 那个东西.
That's so crazy because you know how like K-pop is getting quite big in the States because of like I don't know BTS and Blackpink and stuff. So in Korean apparently like when you say you, it's like 니가.
Oh yeah.
So then apparently in like I've heard that the songs that are getting quite big, like the BTS or whatever Blackpink songs that say that, the artist will actually record a different version so as not to offend people who don't understand the language, so they'll have like an American radio version where they take out like niga, nega, those kinds of words so that there's no like misunderstandings. So I found that really interesting.
That is, yeah.
Okay, thank you so much, Deborah, for coming on. I hope you had a good time. It was really nice meeting you and talking to you.
Yeah, it was nice to meet you too. And nice to see Christina again.
Thank you so much, Debra, and keep in touch.
Tune in next week for an episode with our friend Jessica, a Hong Kong-born native who studied abroad in Nottingham, England, and who's currently back in Hong Kong. She shares with us about life in Hong Kong City, growing up as a young person, as well as the importance of having hobbies, side hustles, and self-development. Stay tuned!